control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is you can us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @spacedoutradio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you for listening in on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, and on Revolution Radio. We welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up in the Great White North, and go to you live on this Friday night, early Saturday morning if you're on the East Coast. Hope you've had a good start to your weekend. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. That's because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, paranormal, ufological, extraterrestrial, and so much more. If you're on the Spaced Out Radio side and you love our music, you can thank the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Check out a couple of his music videos by the official music of Spaced Out Radio, Mr. Bumblefoot. His banner is right there. Just click on it. You can follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we say, hi, how are you? What's going on tonight? To everyone listening in on the Revolution Radio chat room, on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans at Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook, along with other Facebook groups, Chronicles of the Unknown, Euphoria Chronicles, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. If you haven't had the chance yet, you still got time to sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It only equals out to about $5 a month. With that, your name automatically gets put into monthly prize draws. You get access to private group interviews, access to a special section on the website, and so much more. While on our website, you can also check out our latest blogs. We have some very talented writers. My latest blog is on making an emotional commitment from the audience, and you can check out the SOR Spacewire by our news director, Eric Markham. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, helping heal your body, mind, and soul, in person or at a distance. purpleplates.com, the New Agora newspaper, the official paper of this show, and the iTunes app Spirit Story Box. Remember, if you are a listener on Revolution Radio, it is the largest non-profit online radio station going. Do me a favor, take the time, visit freedomslips.com, and donate today. The one common constant of people who have had extraterrestrial experiences is how alone most of them feel. I mean, seriously, who do you tell? Think about it. You're a sane person who has just had a completely insane circumstance happen. How do you tell people that you've been abducted or come in contact with aliens? For some, the fear of ridicule, never mind the situation, has them going crazy inside. The biggest questions, and I know this from personal experience, are, why me? Is this real? What would my spouse say? My parents? My friends? How do I deal with this? They're honest questions, which is why there's a whole group of people out there to help, like Laurie McDonald, a clinical hypnotherapist since 1995. She deals with a plethora of different types of patients, but she strives to provide help and therapy for those who've been taken. Her website is trueyouhypnotherapy.com. We welcome in Laurie McDonald to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Laurie, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday evening. How are you? Laurie, do we have you? Because I see you connected there. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Yes, I'm glad to be here.
It is very nice to have you along for the ride on Spaced Out Radio tonight for the first time, because as an experiencer myself, I know what a lot of people go through. I felt the feelings, the sleepless nights, trying to figure out what the hell truly is going on. And we're going to get into that a lot tonight. But first, let's learn a little bit about you. When you decided to go to college and become a clinical hypnotherapist, were aliens on your mind?
Absolutely not. No, they weren't. I'm not saying they weren't in the periphery, but they weren't my agenda or mission at the time, that's for sure.
When did you start to get into the fact of extraterrestrial experiences? Was this before you went to college? Were you an experiencer yourself, or did you know experiencers, and that's why you started to focus on it?
No, I have been pretty much a lifelong experiencer. And back in the early 90s, I did have a startling extraterrestrial experience that prompted me to begin some investigations. And I was living in Sacramento, California at the time, and I went forward with some investigations by setting up cameras outside of town, so forth, trying to capture some activity, which I was able to do. But it wasn't until I had decided to become a clinical hypnotherapist that things began to change. One of the final steps that we have to do in some of our certification is hypnotizing a person in front of a small panel of judges, making sure that we are indeed bringing them into an altered state of consciousness, having some effect, and then bringing them back up properly. And while I was doing this, a sphere of light just out of nowhere appeared during the session. I had been starting on one line of questioning, and the subject jumped into UFO sighting, and then the landing, and then the actual visual sighting of an extraterrestrial. When I began to ask more questions, this ball of light about the size of a softball and very brilliant and silvery light sort of appeared at the forehead level, zipped down to the end of the body, and completely disappeared. And I was startled, shocked. I had looked over at my shoulders, and the judges had motioned to me, indicated for me to continue. When I caught my breath and began to speak again, the subject went back to its original episode where he was experiencing some other dilemma. It had nothing at all to do with extraterrestrials, and he had no memory whatsoever of asking. So the next several questions were very awkward because it was like there were two different conversations going on. So certainly something had happened to him. The story of what happened during one of my exams got out. People started calling me with their stories, and it's just really escalated. I hadn't really done a lot about it until around, about 4 years ago or 3 years ago. I was doing a small TV show and was discussing hypnotherapy and the phenomena, and I got a phone call afterwards from Canada, from Windsor, Ontario, from my mom, whom I didn't really know. And she had said, I just saw you on TV, and it's really important now that you know some stories about your birth. She then proceeded to tell me that during the 9 months that she carried me, she had been abducted several times. It was a continuous thing throughout the 9 months. She had told my father, and she also had told her doctor at the time several times, and they really were discouraging her to go forward, and they really quieted her. Her last abduction, she had gone out early in the morning and was sitting in the back of the house near the apple orchard, and she said, and this is when I hit speakerphone and called my husband over as she began to tell the final story, and she said just out of nowhere, 2 extraterrestrials appeared on either side of the lawn chair. I really had to resist asking any questions. I just became silent and allowed her to speak. I don't really know her, let alone any of her extraterrestrial experiences. And she said that they started to move through the apple orchard, just moving through the air, and she felt like a time distortion. And in the center of the apple orchard where the tractors are for the harvesting, a UFO had hovered above that. She said instantly she was on the craft where it appeared much, much larger on the inside than it did on the outside, and this caused a bit of disorientation. So they continuously told her throughout a plethora of examinations that they weren't really interested in her, but it was just the baby. But there was always this, communication where that was supposed to calm her down, when that's really not going to calm down a woman who's 9 months pregnant, who's experiencing an abduction. They're not interested in her, just the baby. That actually caused her more anxiety. But she went through and continued to tell the story of what exams and aromas that she smelled, and that later she kind of awoke in the yard outside of the house in full labor, calling out for help, and not one person in the house woke up, but a neighbor heard her, which didn't make sense because she was much closer to her own home, but everybody was in a deep sleep. So the neighbor did rouse the family, and they did bring her to the hospital where she was able to give birth. So I sense that revelation of hers, and here I'm running the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group meeting. I hold a monthly meeting for experiencers of all kind. I offer a free support group where they can tell their story without any fear of ridicule on any level whatsoever, that we're just here to listen and move through it. There's no judgment, just trying to figure out what's happening. And the people who are suffering from this, it turned out, they were just like my mother. She had, been holding this secret of her own and never could feel comfortable speaking of it. She was actually threatened with being sent to a psychiatric ward, and that really did quiet her. She did, though, write the story down back in 1963 and kept her journal, so that now she's able to give it to me, so I have her first-hand account. So it's very interesting, the phenomena and its synchronicities.
That is an amazing story, and that had to be very emotional for you to hear, your mother, whom you say you barely knew, to hear this story that she went through all of this, and that you are experiencing the same thing, well, similar, and it really shows that there is some sort of bloodline trail to this, isn't there?
Well, I certainly think that there is. There's certainly, that is one of the commonalities, that it's generational families, and we've come up with some reasons for that. But there's always these synchronicities. So, when my mom told me this story, now I was 50 years old when she told me that, and didn't really know her. I had heard stories of her not being able to breastfeed me or bond with me and having issues with me, and really was unable to raise me. And so we also see this as a commonality too, not only physical experiments, but psychological as well. What a person can endure or overcome. We do seem to get a lot of that type of reporting. where it's not just physical but psychological. So people on multiple levels, in fact, are being violated. Their human rights are being violated. Now, I asked her, I said, Mom, are you telling me that you were abducted? And she said, well, no, I seem to go willingly. And I said, well, just a minute here. See, now there's a confusion created because even though she didn't resist, she became compliant because she felt disoriented. So I don't really know if that's 100% willing. I would say not in my experience. But I did tell her, listen, doing another show at the time, TV show called Experiencers, and it was a reality TV show where an investigation team would go out, do their very best to investigate a sighting or an abduction, and if necessary, the person wanted or desired to be hypnotized to gain further insight into their experience, I would come on. So I introduced her to the producer through the telephone. His name was Jim O'Connell, and he talked to her, the rest of that summer, and she filled him in on all of these details and her one major missing time experience when she was 12 years old. So she told him everything, and I had asked, listen, she's kept a secret for 50 years. Let's bring her on the TV show and let her tell her truth. Let her be free, no longer worried. They really freaked her out, thinking that she was going to go to the psych ward. No longer having to fear that and just, speaking her truth. So this was agreed, and everybody was going to do it. And when I got the next phone call from Canada, it was my mom had suffered a major brain aneurysm and followed by a stroke and was left unable to speak or articulate clearly. And I was shocked. I was just dumbfounded that this could happen. It just seemed too far out there that this was even possible. So I quickly flew from Sacramento into Detroit and took a car over the border into Windsor directly to the hospital and went and stayed with her for the next couple of weeks while she survived this surgery. Just came back a couple of days ago from Windsor, and she's still confusing, time with money, which is kind of amusing. It's like $4 instead of 4 o'clock. And so, but she can think clearly but not speak the thoughts that are coming into her head, so it's very frustrating. Well, they went on with the show. They created the trailer, and it aired September the 2nd, I believe it was, and the trailer aired all over the place, Fox, I believe. And then on 7 days later, on the 9th of September, the headline in the paper was, Jim O'Connell, TV producer, died mysteriously in his sleep. And now we're like, this is just too many coincidences here. What's happening? And this is a true fact. You can, if your listeners are out there, you can go ahead and Google Experiencers. Just was capital X instead of the EXP. And Jim O'Connell. So it's a great loss to the community in extraterrestrial research and the phenomena as a whole that we did lose Jim. And so we don't know really what's happening with this. There are so many different investigators who come by mysterious death or all of a sudden stop researching. We just don't understand. But at this point in our history, I personally believe we're at a monumental time that the records look like the latest numbers were 280 million people worldwide have reported some type of extraterrestrial phenomena around the world that's based approximately on a 4% value system of the Earth population. Those are people that have reported it. I run a rather large experiencers group, and I ask all the time, has anybody actually made an official report? And not very many hands go up. In a room full, there could only be 1 or 2 people So I can only assume that the numbers are far higher. So this brings me to... Go ahead.
Listening to that number is staggering, Laurie. 280 million people who have reported a sighting or contact. And you're saying in your office only 2 out of maybe 10 raise their hands. That would put the equation
maybe 2 out of 30.
Oh, 2 out of 30. Well, you're looking you're looking then at about 1.3 billion people in this world who have had some sort of contact.
Well, I was emceeing Contact in the Desert this May in Joshua Tree, California. Just some amazing speakers there, and I had the opportunity to talk with Dr. David Jacobs, and he has written a couple of books on the phenomena. I'm sure you're familiar with his work. And he said that number that I'm using is way, way, way too low. When he started to calculate the hybridization program number into the abduction phenomena, then it's in the trillions, and it's just staggering. So what does this mean? He's saying that every time somebody is abducted and they report some type of extraction of ovum or sperm, that these hybrids are then integrating back down onto the planet. And he's saying that we're really actually looking at 2 sets of numbers here. Both of them are really staggering. The hybridization program numbers and then the actual human beings who are reporting that they have experienced on one or more occasions straight up, face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact with extraterrestrials, and then brought to either off-planet or on a ship. Sometimes people describe it as just being in a facility. Sometimes they sense that it's underground. And with hypnotherapy, neurologists tell us that we have far more than 5 or 6 senses, that we're really looking at somewhere between 9 and 12 or 15. And that in hypnotherapy, when we move into that altered state, we're not strictly relying on the 5 senses that we normally use. We're moving into areas of perception and senses that we don't normally articulate in our everyday waking beta brainwave. So it is very interesting that when we do a session that a person can sense 2 or 3 people or entities really standing beside them or behind them. They can't always see exact features such as eyes or so forth, but they can sense, overall height. And they do it quite well in hypnosis, so it's very interesting.
How fun was it to be a part of Contact in the Desert in such an important role this year?
This is my second time out there, and it's an honor, really, to be invited. It's absolutely amazing. It was wonderful. There was a couple of UFO sightings, and I'm sure everybody's heard about those already. They were quite amazing. But then, I had to stop. I'm thinking, we had rented an Airbnb house just a couple of minutes outside of the resort, and we're all out one night, and there's a big group of people, and flash the laser into the sky a couple of times and then get this humongous, power-up flashback from what looked like a UFO. But then I was thinking, it really is a good opportunity for somebody to either create some type of holographic image, test a set group of the population, already believers, already interested, how might they react. So on 2 separate nights, there were 2 large UFO sightings. I don't know what they were, but it was certainly unidentified flying objects.
I would love to go down there, and I know Melinda Leslie, who has been on this show, she is so talented when it comes to being able to track those UFOs into the sky. It's funny that you mentioned the power-ups, because on August 3rd, we got done this show, and I had my SOR Spacewire news director, Eric Markham, with me, and we talk usually after every show. And he's in North Carolina. I'm over here way up in the sticks of British Columbia. And for about 4 minutes, I had a power-up. It was way off in the distance, way in the northeast. And I'm talking to Eric, and I'm like, hey, I just got a power-up, man. This is the first one I've seen in like a year. And he's like, oh. So I kept saying, can you do it again? And it would do it again. Can you do it again? And it's just sitting there in the sky. I said, okay, can you come over my house? Can you head this direction? Power up. And then all of a sudden it went black. And then it powered up about 30 seconds later again, and it's on a trajectory right for my house. I watched this for about 4 minutes and got about 15 to 20 power-ups during that time. Changed color from white to red to that orangish white color that they sometimes go to when it went over my house. And then it just kept on going, heading south, and disappeared right over top of my house. It was absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's always amazing and thrilling. Doesn't matter how many times you see it. And pretty much anyone who wants to see a UFO, really all they need to do is look. There seems to be so much activity. Of course, night vision goggles are definitely going to make it easier. But just astral binoculars or any binoculars that's focusing in on one quadrant of the sky, understanding what you're already seeing, what's out there, checking the satellite trajectory so that you can rule out things. You're always going to see something. We do a lot of sky watches in the summer here in Sacramento. People meet out in certain space or certain areas, and we just watch outer space. And they're called sky watches. We bring food and no light, but lots of food. Watch the sky.
Well, that's kind of why I like living up north here where I do, because the skies are so clear. There's no pollution that is blocking anything. There's not even any chemtrails, although we did get hit with one today, the bastards. But nonetheless, you have so many stars, and you can see the stars in behind the stars. And then, of course, in wintertime, because it gets darker earlier, if you can handle the cold, minus 20, minus 30 degrees, you go outside, and you got literally, if you got the time and the and the heat where to keep yourself warm, you could stand out there and watch all night, because it is just amazing how much brighter the stars are in the winter. So it's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah, I've been a sky watcher my entire life. I'm sure there's no coincidence in that either, but yes, and if you want to see, all you got to do, check it out, and you'll definitely come across a UFO at some point. But it is interesting how, you can sense them. There's this awareness, like all of a sudden they know that you're watching, or you get this feeling that they're aware that they're being observed. It's just a feeling, and that's when you start to see those power-ups and what are we doing, some type of telepathic communication. Certainly something's going on there. I've wondered a lot, and we don't really know. I mean, they're UFOs, and there's so many different reported ones. I've wondered if there's some type of consciousness interface with the craft and pilots themselves, or there's just so much that we can speculate, and clearly that's all we can do until one is landed and they're made well known to everyone.
Do you believe that people do have that ability to send a signal way up into the universe and get the UFOs to show, much like, Robert Bingham does? He's probably the most famous for doing this. Stephen Greer says he has that ability to do so as well. I'm curious, do you think everybody has that ability to contact and make them show themselves?
Yeah, I actually think that we can do that. I believe the human mind is amazing. I think that our consciousness resides both inside and outside of us, and has the ability to transverse both time and space. That, in fact, our minds tend, and our heart energy, when we combine the emotional impact of a altruistic attitude, a well-balanced mind, we can open ourselves to a higher communication. You know, when we were at Contact in the Desert, I flashed the laser specifically looking for a UFO and was easily able to find one. There was a lot of cameras set up, and I had told them, you know, turn around because I don't think that the direction you're facing is where we're going to see it. And, you know, I was with Jimmy Church and all of the Fadernauts there at one of the after parties and flashed the laser up into the sky, and sure enough, that's when we got our own power up. So did we do it? Did I do it? Was it a combined energy? I think that the true desire allowed it, you know, to happen. I think that, yes, we can do that. I think that we are continuously underestimating the abilities that we have and the ability that a human being can do. I mean, there's a lot of extraterrestrial interest in humans, and I don't think that it's just our genetic makeup. I think that what we are, you know, a human, and I believe it was originally spelled H-U-E, hue as in light, where we can measure the intensity of light or the saturation of light is hue. And man is short for manifestation, and a human is a light embodiment or a light embodied entity, simply a description of what we are. So I think that in our infancy of the cosmos, as we're continuously evolving, we are going to find out that we have far more abilities than we realize.
That would mean that we are spiritually connected to them. Whether they're benevolent or malevolent, there is some sort of spiritual connection to them then. Would I be wrong with that, or is that the way you're looking at it as well?
It is the only way, in my opinion, to look at it, because it doesn't matter if it was a saucer-shaped or if it was a triangle spacecraft. What matters is that your reality is challenged to accept the existence or reject the existence of a non-human entity. And when your reality, you know, accepts this challenge, we begin to experience a consciousness expansion, an evolution of sorts. We begin to evolve in a spiritual way. Self-development starts to take place. People begin to change a little bit. We begin to become more aware, awake. We have a larger understanding. And so it can only be a spiritual experience. If we get hung up trying to figure out the nuts and bolts of the situation, then we're a dog chasing our tail. You know, we're not going to get anywhere. It's like being in a rocking chair. You can go back and forth again, not getting anywhere. It's better to use it as a catalyst, a jumping off point to our own understanding of what we are, because it is equally a human experience, not just an extraterrestrial experience. And I think that we disempower ourselves when we put it all out there. Oh, it's just this, you know, extraterrestrial experience. It's not. It's a human experience. And I really think it's important that we understand our value.
A lot of people don't, though. Their minds are blocked. I got into it with friends on Facebook earlier this week, my former colleagues in radio, and it started off on a chemtrail post saying that these people are nuts believing chemtrails do exist, and it turned into all sorts of conspiracies. The mainstream out there, and I'm not just talking the media, the mainstream of people who are 9-to-5ers, who have their 2.1 children, the dog, the cat, the house with the picket fence, the Suburban, and the minivan in the carport, okay, are they ready for this? Because right now, the only thing they seem to be concentrating is on themselves and Pokemon Go.
Well, good God. Yes, sadly. But, okay, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who can point out the difference between a chemtrail and a contrail, and a 6-year-old granddaughter who can explain the difference. It's no longer a matter of conspiracy. It's fact at this point because, believe it's Redwood City, California, has gone ahead and made some municipal laws about space where they're not allowed to do aerosol spraying. But the United States government allowed aerosol spraying as far back as the 1960s with the Agent Orange. They slipped that right in there that they were allowed to do that. It is straight up weather modification. The interesting thing about the chemtrails is we have spotted orbs in them. Orbs that look like UFOs or orbs that act as if they have some type of intelligence. I drive back and forth between Southern and Northern California, and we can see the grid lines in the sky. Come on, now the planes would be crashing into each other if those were normal flights. It's just clearly not, the people who aren't ready for that, I think part of them actually is. It's a little bit scary, and I don't blame them for being or for wanting to reject, but they have to begin to hear the information, and when it's not received well, if you get a little bit of flack on Facebook, that's okay. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and that's just the approach we have to take. The average person's reality is pretty limited to what the program on TV is, and it's called a program for a reason. They are being programmed, to think that just that description that you have, the all-American family, 2.5 children, and so on and so forth, that these things are important and this is how we need to be or how we need to look or how we're supposed to react. But I think and I believe that people are moving past that they're actually seeing now that all of those things are external. They're outside of themselves. They're circumstances of themselves, but not themselves or their life. That in itself is an artificial manipulation and not really allowing a person to unfold or reach their full human potential by limiting our beliefs and our beliefs about ourselves and thinking that what's desirable is to continue, the grind of consumption and production and making the economy flow. Although there are certain aspects of infrastructure and economy that are very important, obviously, there are things that are far more important than that, and that is the spiritual aspect of a person or their humanity or understanding really what that entails. But as long as we look outside of ourselves, we're not really going to find that because that information is really not readily available because those answers are inside of us. And I see that people have a hard time slowing down and settling down into themselves and quieting their minds, not trusting their own thoughts, but always looking outside for somebody else's answer.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Is it the media's fault or government's fault that this is happening, or is it every individual person who said, I've had enough of the news, I've had enough of the bad scenarios that are going around, whether it's shootings, whether it's the wars, whether it's political scandals, and they've just had enough and they've closed themselves off to everything but their immediate friends and family?
A lot of people actually have had enough with the news because they're at that stage of second guessing because of all the false flags accusations, and this is what's happening. A man who wears 2 watches never really knows what time it is. So a person who's can't trust what they're seeing begins to shut down. They're much easier to control when they're not trying to think for themselves. People are being, in my opinion, not everyone and not everything, but there are aspects within our society that are leading us down a path more of destruction, where it's not really helping the human, It's really difficult for people to find that humanity in them these days for fear of all sorts of things. And fear is the big problem here. And some of our research indicates that fear, that energetic, emotional energy, is attractive to certain extraterrestrials, and that they like to create fear-based scenarios because that energy from us is like popcorn to them. So there's lots of different things. The universe, everything is energy. Everything boils down to energy, consciousness, the soul, all of it. So we can look in bigger, broader terms of energy or emotional energy initially.
When you have people coming up to you and saying, I've had an experience, do you find that the experience between the benevolent and the malevolent sides of extraterrestrials have the same consistencies, or have you been able to break down or diagnose a difference between the two?
Well, this is the thing. If there's a situation or an encounter in your life that is an extraterrestrial encounter and it's very scary and very negative, you're reaching an end of your own belief system. Your own thoughts are challenged and you just don't know where to go. You just don't know what to do because it's outside of your normal everyday thinking. So people become very confused. But if you have an experience that's very loving and very blissful, you still are outside of your belief system and you don't know what to think. Personally, on one of my own experiences, I spent 2 years of my life trying to figure out if the extraterrestrial entity that I had my encounter with was even an alien or an angel. And that occupied my mind for 2 years, not the best space to be in because, I just didn't know until finally I realized that it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter at that point, the good or the bad. It really is how it affects us and what we do with it. It's taking personal responsibility for the situation. We have to have within us the ability to resonate with the energy of either situation, good or bad. We come from the planet of duality. Both exist. There's both good and bad.
And I understand that, but I think the definition of what is happening and the acceptance of it would really lie on between what has happened to that person. For instance, a person who has something negative happen, example, Whitley Strieber and everything that he has gone through and put through. A lot of people made fun of him about the anal probing that he was very public about. Yeah. Then you get the people out there who are getting downloads, who are having spiritual enlightenment and spiritual growth. It's really a system of, it reminds me of the Justice Way scales, because you're either going to have one or the other. There's never anything that just seems to be a combination of in between.
Well, I've had both. My first experiences, or outstanding experiences, not really initial experiences, in my late 20s, were with both short and tall, gray extraterrestrials. And they weren't pleasant. In fact, one was extremely violent because I was so lucid, completely awake, completely aware, and fighting back. So that was terrifying, even though still at that age I thought that I should have been or could have been psychologically prepared to handle such an encounter. The indifference of the gray aliens and how they approached me terrified me. because there was just no way that I was able to be anything to them except some type of rat in a laboratory experiment. There, zero emotional energy was exerted, but the only emotional energy that I even sensed from them was when they realized that I was lucid, and they kind of like looked towards each other, almost, I want to say, speaking over my head, and in an instant, in a flash of a light, literally, a taller gray appeared and just continued to move forward towards me, and it looked like in its hand was like a needle about the length of a chopstick, and that's when I started kicking and fighting back. And in the morning, I had tore my abdominal muscles and herniated them and had to get surgery and then a mesh implant to hold the muscle back in. I literally was kicking and fighting for my life in my mind, for my life, because I was that terrified of them. So mine was a very negative experience. But I've had the most beautiful, loving ones as well. And so I don't know why both. I think because I'm maybe, I don't know, I must be able to resonate with both. What else? I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have any awareness of it.
I know exactly what you're saying. My first extraterrestrial experience happened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in April of 2014. And this came 5 days after I was at a friend's house. And the second part actually happened at their house, too, when I had the experience. And the first part was I actually saw, I was called outside, and they had a 10-acre farm in the backwoods of the town I was in, that I lived in back then. And when I went outside, I said, out of peace, love, and light of God, you called us outside. Can you please show me where you are? And about 150 yards away, that's where the ship turned its lights on, right on the ground. And to be that close to a ship, and that happened 3 times on my command, it turned its lights on. And yes, for those of you who are saying, oh, that's BS, I have a witness with me. 5 days after that happened, I went back to the farm, trying to figure this out, because I really didn't sleep much in 5 days. I mean, when you have an experience like that, you just cannot all of a sudden say, oh, that was nice, I'm going to bed now. It doesn't work that way. You know that. Yeah, and I was with an ET contactee friend of mine who's also a monthly guest on this show, and her name is Samantha Mowat. And if you ever get the chance to talk to her, she's way up in Prince George, British Columbia. I will tell you this, she is probably, in my opinion, the number one unknown person in the field of ufology that needs to come out. She is absolutely amazing with her contact experiences and her knowledge of absolutely everything. Anyhow, she and I am showing her where I believe the ship had landed, and she is quite clairvoyant and everything. She starts picking up on the energy that was left behind, and all of a sudden she turns to me and she goes, I'm feeling that we should go into the forest in behind the property. I said, yeah, okay. She goes, are you sure you want to come? Because there's probably going to be something there. Long story short, I follow her into the forest like a dummy, and we come to this opening under the canopy of the trees, and she stops me and she goes, okay, Dave, I want you to stop right here, look at me for a moment. So I did. She goes, I want you to look that way, which is north. And she goes, I want you to look that way and tell me what you see. And this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, no clouds in the sky, bright sunshiny day. And I turn and look, and my words to her for probably the next 3 minutes were, what the F is that? Because 200 feet in front of us was a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial standing there staring back at me.
Wow.
And from then on, after that incident, she asked me, have you ever been abducted? And I said, no. I don't think so. I don't recall. She goes, oh, you'd recall. She goes, if you haven't, get ready, it's going to happen. And she walked me through everything. September 29th, 2014, I woke up on the table. with three of the little gray beings massaging my head, looking for a place to put in my implant.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah.
I mean, well, at least you had a heads up.
Absolutely. I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate.
Right. I mean, at least you had a heads up, but that doesn't, diminish the effects of waking up on a table with little extraterrestrials looking for an implant. Yeah, it's things that are happening to, yes, very educated, very sane, very ordinary people are extraordinary. And it is worldwide, all ages, and has been happening for quite some time. I think that it seems more escalated these days because perhaps more people really are talking about it. Yeah, I interestingly run a mainstream business. Better Business Bureau backed hypnotherapist, yet I'm able to do all of the extraterrestrial abduction regression work, speak on the circuits at the conferences and so forth, and it hasn't, affected me or impacted me negatively in any way. So I think that says something for the way people are accepting what's happening. I think that people are more willing to talk about it or open up. Even the people, who are saying, no, get them alone with somebody, and they'll know somebody else who's talked about it or experienced it. And once they're more comfortable, they'll begin to talk about it. But they may deny it at first, but people are really beginning to open up about it. And, yes, it can be frightening because it's outside of our understanding, but then really, is it now? Because we have to assume when you look out into the vastness of space and you look at our ancient alien records or even the bibliography accounts of extraterrestrials, and you see that there's been interaction with non-human entities for thousands of years. So why would that stop or change now? I mean, I just think that people were misdirected into a new cycle, a new way of living and being, that they stopped, really experimenting and understanding. The ancient Gnostics taught quite a bit about your relationship and interaction with either God or any other entity that was not from here. They just spoke naturally and easily with full acceptance, and people just believed because it was a fact of life for them. So it's all what we're taught. Right now, people aren't taught that that's a possibility. Well, they're beginning to, that's for sure. I mean, younger people are opening up to it. There's just some segments of society that are resisting, and I think that's not even full resistance, because the higher part of their mind, the more logical thought process, has to see that life is everywhere. The universe, the oceans, everything is teeming with life. So it wouldn't stop just outside our biosphere. That would be ridiculous.
It is a little bit ignorant to hear people say that we're the only ones here. I shake my head and I smile. I keep quiet when I hear that because I don't want to get into the big argument, but I still think it's funny that there are still people that naive to think, whether they're religious or not, who believe that we are the only ones in this vast universe.
Yeah, it's very difficult for anybody that's given it any thought to believe that just as soon as, you get beyond our atmosphere, life ends. Okay, that's it. Nothing else is alive out there. It's just, are as far as we can see. But that's pretty much the way people believe. You have to put as far as they can see, then there's no more life after that. Yeah, so that clearly doesn't make sense. And I don't want to make fun of people who don't believe. I just want them to think, is that their real thought, or is that something that they've been taught? And those are two different energies. And it's a good way to look, about questioning certain things.
And on that note, we're going to hop out for a break here on Spaced Out Radio. Laurie McDonald is our guest. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover Demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. I have my bag packed. I'm going out into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi right after this show with Laurie McDonald, because that's what I do. But don't fret. James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin will be around for Spaced Out Weekend Saturday and Sunday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. I will be on Monday for my next run, Monday, every single night of the week. That was good pausing in between those words. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, for our archives. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. Revolution Radio is a donation station, so if you are listening on the double R, do me a favor. It is financed by you. Take the time to donate today. Tonight we are talking with Laurie McDonald. She is a clinical hypnotherapist who helps extraterrestrial contactees and abductees. Her website is trueyouhypnotherapy.com out of Sacramento, California, formerly of Ontario, Canada, so she still waves the maple leaf every now and again. Laurie, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, it's a pleasure. Before we continue on, I'd like to get to some questions from our audience, if you don't mind.
That'd be great.
Javier in the Spaced Out Radio chat room is asking, how do you know if you were abducted?
Well, there are lots of physical indicators. Sometimes we see marks on the body. Sometimes we have extraterrestrial implants that we become aware of. Sometimes we have glimpses and memories of the event. So now, if you don't have anything that's obvious, a person who has either a screen memory or the memory has been suppressed somehow, they might find themselves being triggered to certain images where they might find themselves unable to sleep at night. They begin to have symptoms of what looks like post-traumatic stress, only to find out later that it's post-abduction stress disorder.
And a follow-up from Javier, what do all abductees seem to have in common?
Well, actually, the 2 weeks following an abduction, most abductees indicate a heightened sense of psychism, where they become more intuitive. They have precognitive dreams, or they become slightly telepathic for the following 2 weeks after, and sometimes that residual energy stays with the abductee. So there's lots of different things that happen after an abduction, and really, it depends on who abducted you.
Well, this leads into his next question. He says, the fact is we really don't know the real truth about abductions. All we have is theory, and when it comes to interdimensional beings, we know little. How much do we really know?
Javi is absolutely right. We don't know definitively anything. We hypothesize, we create theories, we make conjectures, we create lists, I create lists of commonalities, we put things together, I try to do psychological profiling of the extraterrestrial. Say you get abducted by a mantis, a reptile, a tall gray, a blue. If you have an encounter with an energetic being, interdimensional, we can at least, because so many people have had those experiences, and I've heard thousands of firsthand accounts, I can create some type of reference point as to what the experience might be like, because so many people share commonalities. But what do we know? Nothing. We're only speculating.
Joe, who's a frequent listener in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, says, as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever seen an alien or been on a ship or been abducted. I have noticed a lot of weird things. I'm not sure being regressed and finding out all this crap is happened to you is a good thing. So his question is it a good idea to find out and possibly be terrified of what has happened, or is it better to stay ignorant and blissful?
All right. That's a setup for sure. Obviously, that's a two-part question here, okay? If you have absolutely no indicators that you've been abducted by extraterrestrials, then by no means should you be going to a hypnotherapist to find out if that was a possibility for you. No, you shouldn't do that, because it would be a waste of everybody's time. Now, is it better to be ignorant or to be in bliss? Really, the truth is we have to take responsibility for the things that happen in our life, and we have to know the truth, because ultimately that's where we can act from. So we need to know the truth, but you don't go looking for trouble, because you'll always find it.
A lot of people who come to you for support, and the stories that you have heard even from people whom you haven't met, but those stories seem to travel around, are sometimes frightening. They're sometimes unbelievable, for a lack of a better term, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. How important is it for you when you meet with clients and you can look them dead in the eye and say, I believe you?
Oh, it's so important. It's so important because they need to be validated on a certain level. There's a huge sigh of relief, and it's very important. And here's something else that's really important. You're not alone. That's good to hear, too. It's good to know that the phenomena that you're experiencing that's throwing you off track, off of your regular life, other people are experiencing, and when you're brave enough to speak your truth and say, hey, this is happening to me, I don't know what it's all about, but I'm not going to find out if I keep it to myself. So we have to talk about it. We have to trust that people will support us. And if the people in your life don't support you, then look for groups like I run. Check your local meetups, check support groups, people who are willing to share their experiences with either UFOs, entities, or abductions. It helps to know you're not alone and that somebody else believes you. So, yeah, Dave, it's huge.
So when you talk to them and you get that belief, is it usually followed by a breakdown from the people because it's finally their ability and their time to have that emotional release?
It depends on their level of experience. You know, sometimes people do have a little bit of support, somebody outside the family, but there are sometimes very emotional responses. The people in the support group treat each other like family. They're warm and generous when they greet. They're open and supportive on every level. And really, it's a pleasure to facilitate a group of such people who can come together around such bizarre circumstances and be like everyday people. Now, the Discovery Channel Canada had approached our group, and they were doing a documentary. They were doing 6 one-hour documentaries on what the world will be like after certain things, after, say, extraterrestrial disclosure, or perhaps a pandemic, or who knows, the apocalypse. So what the world might be like after that. So they did film the support group. And later, during the breaks, the film crew spoke, generously about the level of intimacy and openness among the people. So finding that support group can make all the difference in the world.
How important is it for people to be believed in these topics?
I personally think it should matter, but it does matter to people. I think that if you can trust yourself, and, you're going to go through is it real, is it not real, is it true, is it audio hallucinations, is it schizophrenia, is it some type of artificial psychotronics? Was this being, beamed into my skull? There's a whole list of things you have to go through before you get down to the fact that you're saying, hey, I've had an experience and it's extraterrestrial. But it's not just always extraterrestrial, and certainly not everybody that comes to me who thinks they've had an experience actually have. Many of them have not, and they've misinterpreted their experience for something that it wasn't. Some people who believe that they're talking to extraterrestrials all the time, they feel that they have their ETs, they call them. They're guides. They're the ones talking to them all the time. They're in constant communication. Sometimes they go on a craft. Sometimes they report. Sometimes they have specific duties. And these people call them family, whether they're Palladians or whatever type of extraterrestrial. Now, I'm very wary about relationships like that, because we don't have a full understanding of what you're allowing. And, I meet all kinds of people all the time, and they're psychic or clairvoyant, and they say to me, you're a Nordic, or you're a Pleiadian, or you're an Anunnaki. And I say, no, I'm not. I'm a human woman, and I don't allow any of these extraterrestrials to claim me, because another word for claim is possess. And right now, I would remain more sovereign until we understand exactly what we're dealing with. And we can agree that there are many types of life, and that perhaps we don't have the answers, and so we have to be cautious. Just because we have an interaction with something that came to us doesn't mean that it's holy or in our best interest. We don't know. We have to be very cautious. People ask all the time, well, if this is happening, how come they just don't land on, the White House lawn and make themselves known? Well, I think that it might be more importantly in that it's a one-on-one communication, that we gain our understanding on an individual basis so that we're strong and empowered in our beliefs. And so we know where we're coming from. And perhaps that's why there's so much individual contact. I think that the individual contact might be far more important than people realize. If we did have this disclosure that people are talking about, that type of information would have to be administered through a specific government in the doses that they felt were appropriate for the masses. And the masses are all on the same wavelength, and so we can't have the information being controlled that way. So it is an individual experience and an individual responsibility of learning and developing. It's almost we say we have these human rights and universal rights. Well, part of that is responsibility in learning our place in the world and on the planet and in the universe. I mean, those are questions that we should all seek answers to, and not so much through other people, but through our own learning. Trust your own instincts and intuition to help guide you to what it is you need to read or learn to get you to that next step. It's important that people take responsibility for their relationships, especially if they're having them with extraterrestrials. And Dave, people saying that they have full-on intimate relations with extraterrestrials. A very famous one, I'm probably sure you've heard of, Simon Parkes from the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Who claims, yeah. So there are a lot of people now who, now I don't know his level of authenticity, but he does claim to have a extraterrestrial, reptilian, or mantis mate and hybrid children. And he says he is a hybrid himself. He's also an elected political official in some town. So he must have some level of credibility to be elected. Yet, his story seems very Star Trek. But he's not alone. He's not alone either. There are many people who have the same type of experience. So the experiences are so wide and so varied, it makes it very difficult for researchers like myself to really put together answers that are going to fit the mold of everybody's experience. It's just too difficult. I mean, the best we can do at this point is narrow it down to the specific type of race or entity that you're involved with, including the MyLab abductions, because they're abductions too.
When you are dealing with people and they come to you saying, I need help, I believe this is happening to me, How do you judge their sanity from insanity? Because you have to vet everyone to make sure that this is a true story and not just someone who maybe has a psychological problem or looking for their, 5 minutes of fame.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yes. There certainly is a process and a lengthy intake interview that we do to help us determine whether we're dealing with somebody of a rational mind. And not, like I said, not everybody has been. I've referred out schizophrenics because the voices that they are hearing are not extraterrestrial. And so I can't help them. So, yeah, we get lots of that too. And not that long ago, I had a man come to me, very tall man, strikingly tall, who was ducked a little to get into the doorway of my office, and he had a story to tell. He told me that he was a FBI agent, and that he was, in fact, undercover at Beale Air Force Base here in California. He was undercover posing as a MP. And one night, the other MPs had told him, hey, do you want to see a UFO? We need to be outside over near this hangar because you're going to be able to see this exchange. He went on and told an amazing story. He then started to drop pretty big names. I was taking notes, and he then started to show me his hands and say, look, I used to have a 6-digit on each hand, and these are the marks, these are the scars of where I had them surgically removed. And he said, implying now that he's a Nephilim descendant, as some people know they were the sons of the gods, the daughters of man that are spoken about in Genesis. And that was one of the characteristics that they had, was the 6 digits. And so now I'm concerned, okay? So he had said a lot of things. A lot of them are obviously getting my interest, and then others are kind of making me raise an eyebrow. And then I told him, I'll make a determination to whether I can work with you and get back to you. After a 3-hour interview, what I did do was have the information turned over to a former real FBI agent who worked in missing persons, and had her run the 2 names that he gave me, the name that he was supposedly working under and the name that he really was. And what ended up coming back on my desk was about 100 pages of a rap sheet, and on the first page in big bold letters highlighted with a yellow marker, it said, do not be in the presence of this man without law enforcement, without being wired and under the protection of law enforcement. And there you have it. So, sure, that was somebody who certainly was looking to create some type of notoriety about his case, and some of the names, I'm not even going to repeat them, that he was saying were just, ridiculous. So he was looking to create a name for himself. He wanted to make sure that my sessions were filmed, and that, he was going to pursue having to turn them over to the media. So he was just looking for it, and he was pretty obvious. Well, he had a lot of red flags, and so I did my due diligence to make sure. And so sometimes we have to do more than just vet, a full background check, because who knows who's coming through the door. But then there are those who are legitimate, and they have experienced something. They just don't know what it is, and they're looking for a little help and some answers. And if we can do that, then that's what we do. And help them through the transition period, bringing them to a larger understanding, giving them a little bit of information and some personal empowerment to make some decisions. There are some things that we are learning. If you don't want to be abducted by aliens, then you need to make that pretty clear.
Do they listen?
Want to have some, well, apparently, some research indicates that there are universal laws, and we have to state our belief, and that whether we are our agreement, we have to agree, or if we don't agree, that we're agreeing by non-compliance, just like my mom was. You know, she did. If she might have said, no, stop, they're not going to let this, you have no right to do this, they may have stopped. I know that I personally have no more interactions with the Grays whatsoever. I think they are pretty clear on how I feel. So I think that, yeah, to a certain degree, there has to be some type of structure, and some type of universal law, some type of understanding, but claiming, you know, your rights and standing up for them is important. Yeah, you need to say absolutely not. You know, if the people that are out there running around saying, I want to get abducted, people saying, well, I totally want to be abducted. Well, what are they really asking for here? What are they really looking for? I don't think that the word abduction is the right verbiage. I think that you have to be careful of the words that you use. You know, words and thoughts both have power and energy. We measure mental thought in ergs. When thoughts leave the mind, if we can, when we're hooked up to an EEG, we can read them, can read the brain waves, but when we're not hooked up, those brain waves are continuously emanating from the mind, and they go somewhere. They're cumulative in the laws of likes attract likes based on density. The thoughts have to be the same. So there's all kinds of energy, and thoughts and words have power, and understanding what you say and do is important. It's right now, a lot of people believe, and NASA scientists even admit, that the third dimension as we know it is slipping away, that we are in fact moving into the lower fourth dimension and ultimately into the fifth, and that what we need to learn is emotional control. E in math is energy, and it's energy in motion, are our emotions. That's the catalyst to our thinking and belief. It's a catalyst to the energetic frequency or blueprint of us, thumbprint of us. And we're leaving energetic marks based on our emotion. So people are a little bit more complex than we realize, and we have to have a little bit more self-control of our thoughts. We have to learn some balance as we move through this time. People call this also the time of ascension. In the Dark Ages, in the medieval times, the Earth was as far away from the sun as it gets. Those were the Dark Ages. We're moving around, and as the universe is growing, the universe is expanding, we're moving up into the ascension process. We are becoming illuminated if we'll allow it. We might not even have a choice here, but the universe is expanding. We are part of it, and we actually have a responsibility to learn about ourselves and others and make things about what we'll take, what we'll deem necessary, and what we'll allow to happen to us. We're ultimately responsible for anything, so we have to be able to say yes and no and expect that to be respected. And on a certain level, a lot of people indicate to me that there is an order and that we should trust the higher order.
Why do people feel the need to relate to a species? You always hear certain abductees, especially on social media, where they say, I'm Pleiadian, or I'm Zeta, or I'm from Orion or I'm Arcturian? Why do we always have to give ourselves that relationship?
I'm not quite sure, to tell you the truth. Obviously, I believe it's some type of extraterrestrial manipulation that makes these people feel special when they create this association. So their vanity and ego are being appealed to. And it may not be their own true thoughts. It could be the manipulation of the extraterrestrials. This is a way to break down people, is by appealing to them. A lot of extraterrestrial interference comes by people saying, oh, they feel special, they were chosen, as if their specific DNA was so important that it was going to save a whole other race of beings. See, that's clearly a manipulation. So we have to be very careful, again, when we claim or personify ourselves in the image of or relate family to Pleiadians or Nordics or Arcturians or any of them, because at this moment, what we are human, and let's figure that out before we go taking a step and just giving up your full sovereignty and allowing yourself to be claimed by these species. And, and that I see this in younger people, children who have lifelong experiences. They'll say that they had these entities come to them, and when they'd be outside playing, and they would tell them, we're your real parents. That's wrong. I don't care what race you're from. You're creating dissension and discord among the nuclear family here, and that's not permittable. We need to make, certain things clear. And we have to be very careful that we don't slide into the gray area, no pun intended, of the manipulation. And I think since many of the extraterrestrials, so it's been told, have the ability to shapeshift, they could look like whatever they want. So a gray could very well appear as a beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, Nordic, Pleiadian, or whatever, Andromedan even. So again, Dave, this is a problem. We just don't know. And so I say it's probably better to err on the side of safety and just know what you are in this moment before we allow this great association, because we're giving up this big part of our personality, or we're creating this image, and that image is an Amma starseed or a Pleiadian, as they say.
The only reason why I ask that is I see a lot of that on social media. Now, the name I mentioned to you earlier, Samantha Mowat, if you were to see her, you would definitely say, oh, there's something very extraterrestrial about her. You can just tell, and she'll tell you point blank, she's not from here. She is from, she believes, because she has been taken back, that she is from the Lyra system of the Pleiades. And of course, Pleiadian. Now, if you look at her, you can tell right away, oh, she is definitely not from here. But it almost seems like this is a way for people to almost try and engage or accept the fact that they are a contactee or an abductee. And this is their way, I hate to put it in these terms, but to brag about it, if you know what I'm saying. Like, It's a sense of pride. It's a sense of, I'm more knowledgeable than you. Ego, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and I believe that truly that there are some people who actually are hybrids, or their consciousness is now embodied in the human body, and they're having a third-dimensional experience. And I actually think that that's possible. Now, as far as social media goes, and I've seen quite a bit of that myself, to me it's a little bit disturbing for people to use it as bragging rights and and it diminishes, once again, their humanity.
Out of all the people you have spoken with or helped in regards to this subject, have you ever collected a list on how many different extraterrestrial species your clients alone have had contact with?
Well, funny you should ask. Yeah, actually, Dave, that's what I've been working on. The book I'm working on is called The Extraterrestrial Interference. And part of it is the different races that have been reported to me. I have wonderful sketches, and a young woman who is in the group who can work pretty much like a police sketch artist. And the experiencer can describe the entity, and she can sketch it, and then we can look again for people who have had some type of contact with that same one. So, yeah, there's many different types of races, and then we see these other beings that are really just all we can say is that they kind of have the silhouette of a human, and they're a color of light, generally violet or blue, some people report. And those are a different type of entity, more non-physical than, say, your Pleiadian and gray.
When you have a calculation of it, are you looking at 25, 20, 50 different species that your clients have met? Or is there a main consistency, whether it's grays, Dracos, reptilians, Pleiadians?
Yeah, there's about a dozen, and really hundreds when people start saying, these aqua reptilian entities that kind of sound like Naga, descendants of the Anunnaki that went under the water. So, yeah, we get all of these different ones that, there's just so many. Then other people have had the same experience with it. So that's all we can look for when we're saying, what do we know? What we know is X amount of people have had an experience with reptilian, X amount of people claim Pleiadian, X amount of people say gray, so on and so forth. Blues come up quite a bit. But now, within the gray abduction phenomena alone, women who claim to have been taken on craft and worked in the nursery nurturing the hybrid children describe every type of entity known. One very recently was, she said that the baby was blue-skinned, but the nose looked very much like the trunk of an elephant, which kind of sounds a little Indian, one of the Indian gods. So that was interesting. And then some women said that the child's eyes were too difficult to look into, and they felt repelled, disgusted even, and at the same time slightly curious. What I have noticed, Dave, is when I do work with people over a period of time and they're no longer frightened and they become empowered, they want to know, they want answers. They want to know, hey, what happened to the eggs they took from me? That hybrid child that I was shown, if that's my child, I want it back. I have rights to that child. And is that child yearning for its human mother or father? What's happening here to these hybrid children? What are they being used for? And what about the people whose children they really are as well? Again, a violation of rights. This is where it gets all gray again. It's neither black nor white. We don't know what we can do or where our power lies. So then what is a person to do? That the women will become empowered, and basically it comes down to they want to know about their offspring.
Eric has a question.
Other area.
Eric has a question in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. He is asking, Laurie, have you still seen a lot of evidence on the hybrid program still being in progress?
Well, I hear a lot about it. People are always claiming that they're either a hybrid or that they have hybrid children, and if you read Dr. David Jacobs' work, he believes that there are many, many hybrids already integrated into different levels of society, from very lowest level of perhaps working, the night shift at a hotel or up all the way as high as government politics. So there could be a large integration of hybrids. So, yeah, we hear quite a bit about it.
How many women do you think this is truly happening to?
No, the number would, this is the thing. In the 80s and 90s, this is when a lot of the gray abductions were happening with the extractions and so forth, or even earlier. And it wasn't just grays, it was also ones that appear to be fitting the description of a zeta, which is approximately the same height, dark eyes, but not as large, not almond-shaped or wrapped around, more sunken even, or more protruding forehead. So the grays and the zetas then can do some abduction. The zetas are actually say that they have the interest of humanity at heart and that they want to help, and that, the hybrids are here to help. Now, others don't believe that. They think that they're fearful of the hybrids, which again now makes it very difficult to all of a sudden, what if, people can discover some type of DNA or genetic marker that indicates for sure that they're hybrids. And we do know of a woman by the name of Maria Malayos, I believe it is, and she is from South America, and her mom said that her baby was a hybrid, extraterrestrial. Doctors have taken blood samples and DNA samples, and there is indeed something very unusual about her blood, something foreign, and it warrants, further investigation. And so there are beginning to be indicators that we might be able to measure that say you are a hybrid, but we have to start to understand their position if and when they exist. So the hybrid program of integration or the hybrids themselves is a very, very sticky situation here.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very intriguing concept that it seems so many women are being taken for the hybridization program. I know my wife, Mrs. Spaced Out Radio, has been taken a few times. However, her experiences, because of I think it's because of the soul she is. I really lucked out with this one, second time around. Mm-hmm. You always seem to. But when she has been taken, she always comes back very happy, very enjoyed. She's never sore. She's never feeling pain. She's never having marks put on her. She doesn't know who's taking her. All she knows is when she goes and crawls back into bed, there they are standing there at the doorway while she's crawling back into bed. She says it feels always so peaceful. And in fact, she even claims that even though my studio is right below our master bedroom in the basement here, she even claims that she was actually taken one time while I'm sitting down here broadcasting. Yet,
well, I'm sure that's possible.
It is. It totally is. It kind of trips me out that I didn't hear anything or it didn't set the dogs off. But on the flip side, her experiences have been very positive, benevolent. She's never had any problems. So how are they choosing these women in which direction they're going to go, whether they're going for the hybridization program or they're just maybe a spiritual abduction?
Well, that's a difficult question, Dave, because by her own account, she doesn't know what's happening. She just knows how she feels, as she's crawling back into bed. And what we do know is that they can manipulate how we feel, that they can create an artificial sense of peace, that they have the ability to manipulate our brain waves, very much like a hypnotic session where we want to move between like the alpha and theta brain wave. We go a little deeper. We're moving into sort of the dream state. And we know that they can create that dream state, half awake, half asleep, and manipulate how we feel. That is why people become compliant and go along with it. So it's great that she feels good, but she has no recollection. So she is a perfect candidate for a hypnotic regression to see what's happening in between leaving and crawling back into bed blissful. It doesn't mean that it's nefarious. It just means that we simply, once again, don't know because she doesn't have that recollection.
Eric is wondering in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, have you ever seen abductions involving the reptilians much, and what do you think of their agenda?
Well, the reptilian agenda, I mean, I understand that they're warmonger, kind of power-hungry, people who claim to have interactions or abductions by reptilians, although abduction really isn't their thing. They claim that they get some type of combat training and that these people maybe have more of the R factor or reptilian in them than, say, others. Maybe a larger reptilian brain than mammalian brain, and so that's more of their inclination. So, yeah, I do actually still hear about people who have experiences with reptilians. And the reptilians, being shapeshifters, again, are able to deceive. We don't know what we're dealing with them. I have worked with a young man and a young woman separate from each other. Both had very striking commonalities among their stories. Both said that they were taken off planet to some other place, brought to a facility where they saw humans on what looked like a conveyor belt where skin was removed, then they were decapitated and dismembered, and that the reptilian was forcing them to watch and showing them that they can also be eaten. So 2 young people in their 20s had these experiences, practically identical. Other people have come to me as well, speaking about the same sort of dismemberment of humans. It's quite gory.
Do you think that's where a lot of these missing people are taking place? We've seen people looking into this a lot more recently where people just seem to vanish. Do you think this is what's happening with them?
I think that it's a possibility.
I know there has been so many instances, like when I worked in Vancouver in mainstream radio, we would get reports once every number of months, let's say 8 to 10 months, maybe 8 months to a year, okay, where somebody just vanished, not involved with drugs, not involved in any type of trade, not involved with any type of illegal activity, a good person, student or good career person, and it always seemed to be a man, and they just vanish, just into thin air, and there's no trace of them. There's no signs of struggle. There's no signs of anything. Just poof, gone. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Something like that, absolutely. The reptilians are, they create fear. And that creates an imbalance in our psyche. And it throws us off of our center and allows us to be manipulated. I had a reptilian experience myself, and I, for some reason, had no fear whatsoever. And frankly, was a little upset that they even felt that they could involve me in any of their shenanigans. When I exerted myself to the reptilian, I think that I took a superior position. They seemed to be very regimented, understanding the chain of command. I felt that I was fully empowered, and it stepped back and allowed me to continue to proceed to leave without any interference. So it's when you don't give away your power through fear, especially with the reptilians, you're able to communicate and perhaps, stop or circumvent any type of interaction with them. Fear is a big thing, and when we're fearful and fear-based, it allows them to manipulate our energy. We have to be very careful that we understand, any fear that we feel, that, real fear, and then, fear of our survival. Fear of the unknown, should be just momentary. We should be able to shake that type of fear and begin to start reasoning, start using logic, start pulling information from what we have so that we can make that next empowered step. That's important. We have to know as much about the extraterrestrials as we can psychologically so that we know how to behave. And for me, it worked. And I'm grateful for that. But it was my true self. I didn't really feel that it had any power over me on any level whatsoever. And so it didn't.
We have about 3 minutes left until we're going to go to our final break of the night here, Laurie. So I'm going to slip in one more question, if you don't mind. This one comes from Shar in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. And she is asking, what do you know about the Greys and the tall, skinny green bug creatures together? And I'm going to assume she means the mantid beings. Have any of your clients ever really talked about the mantids?
Many have. And they feel that they work together. Again, chain of command, that the Greys work for the mantis, and that they have this ability to look, so deeply into a human that it reads, everything about your life, your soul, even your past life. This is a feeling that people are left with, but they're often reported in the background of an abduction as these kind of overseers, so to speak. So you would see sometimes hybrid gray reptoids working on a human, doing something, and then the taller, mantid or mantis beings in the background observing. So, yeah, they do come up. Some people feel at peace near them, and others feel cold to the core of their being and extremely exposed is how they describe it.
But once again, I've also heard positive mantid encounters, especially from the greenish white guys or girls. Maybe they're hermaphrodites. I don't know. But I've heard that there is positivity, and we have to relay that. And I realize it's tough to do this, but we also have to relay, like there's good people and bad people out there. For every race of extraterrestrial that's out there, there are the good and there are the bad. Would you agree with that? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, that's absolutely a fair assessment. And it all really has to do with the specific vibrational frequency or consciousness that entity is at. Some are self-serving, and some are not. And some are perhaps just curious. And I have to say, I've had experience with some that are unconditionally loving and where I felt it in their presence, just a huge vibration through my entire consciousness, and that I felt expanded in a way, privileged to glimpse some of the things that they showed me. And it's all, beyond my ability to articulate the beauty, the depth of love. That level of unconditional love just doesn't exist in the third dimension. But in their presence, everything vibrates so much faster.
And on that note, we're going to step out for our final break of the night. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. Laurie McDonald is our guest. True You Hypnotherapy is her website. We'll be right back.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us as once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra to get this message out to you. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Spaced Out Weekend is back with Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, and Elizabeth Anglin, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. As they rock and roll for the weekend, I'm back in the hot seat on Monday night with Chronicles of the Unknown, talking a little bit of paranormal. Remember, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. Why? Well, maybe we're a little insane, maybe we're a little crazy, but it's something that we like to do. Hey, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While on our website, take the time to join the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. With that, you get your name put into monthly prize draws. You get asked to go into private group interviews. You also get a private section for your postings on our website, and so much more. The SOR Space Travelers password for tonight, set by Bill Cardwell, is confiscation. Confiscation is your password. Make sure you use it wisely if you're a space traveler. Hey, if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, do me a favor. Revolution Radio is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. Take the time, if you like what we're doing, to donate today. For the final time tonight, we introduce Laurie McDonald. She is a clinical hypnotherapist that helps people who are being abducted. Her website, trueyouhypnotherapy.com. She is out of Sacramento, California, via the great country of Canada, as we wave the maple leaf. Laurie, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Do you miss the good hockey down there? Do you miss that?
I absolutely miss the hockey. Luckily, the beer is available.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I was surprised, believe it or not, I was surprised that there are very, very few casinos in Las Vegas, because I go to Las Vegas once, twice a year. It's like my home away from home. Maybe it's just because I like seeing the Janet Jets at McCarran Airport. But I was surprised how few casinos actually know how to make a Caesar.
Oh, yeah. No, they don't understand the Clamato juice thing.
I will tip you off, if you're ever at the Golden Nugget, they actually have Clamato shipped in from Canada because all the Canadian tourists have been asking for it. So that is the place to go. Golden Nugget, their center bar there, right at the front by the strip. They have Clamato. Go there. It's a good one.
I'm going to have to admit that I've been there.
Yes. I got a couple more questions from our audience as we continue on tonight with you. This one comes from Daryl in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is asking, out of the people whom you have had hypnotherapy sessions with, have they ever mentioned anything about the extraterrestrials on a personal level, like whether they like music, food, sleep, intercourse, anything like that? Have they humanized it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. All of the above, including sex and food. Very interesting food is described, combinations of foods. Very interesting. So depending on, once again, the race that the human has the experience with, that's what we'll see. So yeah, we can get lots of information that way. Now, see, there are also contactees outside of the abduction phenomena who have this ability to move their minds up and out the body. They have the ability to move into space, dip into the civilizations or ancient civilizations of past extraterrestrials. They believe that they're contactees, but they're not just receiving. They have the ability to move out there, and they discuss all types of infrastructure of civilizations and their particular ecologies and how they work there. They also always comes back being described as feminine in nature, that the people have a sort of an understanding of the divine feminine energy, and that's how a lot of the societies are ruled. Those seem very much human, very much like what we would almost consider heavenly, so to speak. So there are all kinds of things, and there are lots of people who come to me and say that they're having sexual relations with some type of reptilian extraterrestrial, and we do see that the reptilians have a heightened interest in not only fear, but sex as well.
If you ever read Philip Kraft's book when he got taken by the Verdants, he mentions that the Verdants actually have a scientific group that are there to test out human sexuality because they're not sure of the feeling. They don't understand the emotional bond and the feeling and the enjoyment of sex. Have you ever had anybody mention something along those lines?
All the time.
And what is usually the response with that?
Well, it's very human. I mean, this is what I say, that some of the experiences seem to be based on not genetics, but these extraterrestrials are more curious in understanding what makes us tick, because higher emotions that are driven with bisexual sexual feelings or interests, they spark lots of energy around us. You know, they tell us that there creates a difference in our brain, and different chemicals are all aflush through our system, and the hormones have changed. And when our hormones are changing, we're becoming a little bit more heightened. And so I'm sure that they're very interested in this. And if a human being had the ability to completely control all of our systems and energies, we would be, you know, quite fascinating, I'm sure. Look at people under distress who all of a sudden have superhuman strength and can pick up a automobile with one hand while rescuing their infant with the other. This is because of the adrenaline surge in the system. All of these inside of us leave energy inside of us that we don't see as well. I'm sure we're sparking all over when we do certain feats. And with sex and love are huge. Fear also, big energy imprints.
A lot of people have made this a very popular topic over the last 8 months to a year, and it's the RH factor in blood. Do you believe that this has something to do with the alien abduction phenomena, or do a lot of your clients have RH negative blood?
Well, it is a fact that 80% or so of abductees have RH negative blood. Just the way it is. We don't know why, but that is indeed a commonality. Maybe you've heard of the association ICAR, ICAR, the International.
Yes.
Yeah. They have done some great work in creating commonalities, and they show a very high percentage also of the RH negative. Now, I am doing a work in the therapeutic capacity for the Edgar Mitchell Foundation into research into extraterrestrial encounters, free, and that's their acronym. And we get a lot of statistical information as well, but blood type generally isn't one of the things that come up, though. But when it does come up, it is RH negative.
What is it that you think, and maybe it is your own personal theory, I'm very curious to know the answer, that has extraterrestrials, good or bad, attracted to the RH negative blood?
Not sure. I really have thought about it, and I'm not sure. You know, maybe the RH negative blood is a larger indicator of an immune system. Maybe that RH negative people have a stronger immune system and are more easily around the presence of extraterrestrials or through whatever decontamination process you have when you're brought on the ship or brought back. So maybe RH negative people have a stronger immune, because we do see that people who claim to be abducted come back, they have this increased craving for citrus fruit, any type of citrus fruit, and they'll eat 3, 4, 5 of them all at once, more so even. And so we know that that's indicating a vitamin C deficiency, and a vitamin C deficiency indicates a compromised immune system. So we always end up with are indicators, but we do need to look at RH negative, and it could be something to do with the immune system. That's the direction that I'm leaning in.
Changing topics once again, Eric has a question in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He is asking, have you ever had any clients that have reported seeing military or government involvement with my labs? And what has been the response from people involved?
Yeah, I have had people say that they think that they see not only a military, but, the white jackets of our own doctors. So it looks like that they're with doctors and military. They try to, focus in on insignia during a regression, would I regress them, so we can see if it is indeed, some branch of the military. But it doesn't seem that, to me, if a person is being abducted for my lab, military laboratory, they'd be trying to gain information from an abductee to find out what they know, either about researchers, hypnotherapists, or whoever other people they work with, as well as their abduction. So people who are going around saying, hey, I'm my lab, I'm like, wow, okay, now I got to be careful what I say to you if I don't want it to end up being extracted from you. So it's difficult, but I don't think that they would do it in their, military, what are they called, oots and jutes, I believe, the fatigues. I don't think that they're going to abduct in that because it's too obvious. So maybe part of that My Lab abduction is a screen memory of military men, because logically you wouldn't go around with, U.S. Army stamped across your chest while you're trying to abduct somebody. And then, there are times where I just don't feel that they would be in uniform like that, and that would be one of them. It wouldn't be that branch. It seems so. There could be a screen memory associated with the military laboratory abduction.
It's a whole different ball game from what alien abduction truly is, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's people who say they have been abducted by aliens are the number one people who are going to have the My Lab experience. I mean, otherwise there's no need for My Lab. So I think this is kind of how that might have started. Back when Eisenhower apparently had created some type of treaty with the extraterrestrials, tall grays and whites, I believe, that they allowed, in exchange for specific technology, they allowed the abduction of 250 Americans. And most of them were GIs, generally enlisted. This way the government could dual track them, always going to have some type of check or benefit to be associated with once you're in the military or in the big system forever. So they were easily tracked and easily able to always find out where they were, perfect for a military laboratory abduction. But then the extraterrestrials just continued to abduct however many they wanted, knowing that there wasn't really anything that we could do because they're looking at it through the eyes of simply technology, that, they can trade technology. But I say when we're dealing with the extraterrestrials, it's more than technology. It's our essence, our consciousness, our soul, our spiritual energy. That's the true energy. That's the real energy, not this artificial technology that they can create. Again, just, another manipulation and diversion away from the truth, that where our power is given away for technology. I mean, it's almost cliche. That we would be so ignorant that we would still be able to make that type of a trade.
It really is one of those amazing things that we don't think is still going on. Yet there is plenty of proof and plenty of people, including Matthew Pauly, who has been on this show, and he'll be coming back on here in the next couple of months again. He's probably one of the latest whistleblowers, so to speak, that it is still continuing. It is still a problem. Why do you think the government is still interested in this program?
Well, they know that they're extraterrestrials, okay? And they know that there are certain people who are going to be, possess more ability to communicate with them. And those are your open-minded, open-hearted, well-balanced, intellectual, curious humans. These people have no negative agenda. They're simply being human. And with that type of energy, you are going to attract that. Any person seeking enlightenment or the answers to things, when you're out there questioning, pondering, wondering, you are on a path. And it's true, you will get answers. When you begin to ask for things, they begin to happen. Watch what you ask for. At least be cautious. I don't mean it as a negative warning, but just be aware of everything that we say in this process, because we begin to be great manifestors, humans. That's kind of what we do. We manifest, we manufacture, man makes things. That's what we do in the third dimension as we are fully embodied in this dimension where time is slow. And it's slow on purpose. It's slow so that we have the ability to self-correct when we are not feeling at ease in the mind or the body. It's an indicator that something is out of balance, and we have the ability to self-correct. And right now, people are seeking. They are asking the big questions, and they are open-minded, and many people have an open heart as well. It's the two really need to go together. The cardio-electromagnetic energy, the strongest energy in the universe. That's the truth. So that comes from people, humans. So, we are magnificent beings who have no idea of that because we think that magnificence is a nice car and a big house. Oh, my goodness. All those things are external, but we have the opportunity to think things through now and self-correct, and it's time that we do that. It is the time that we do that because we are moving into fourth and fifth dimensional consciousness thinking, and we have to expand the mind. A lot of people are kind of leaning towards, say, this, Big Bang sort of theory where the universe exploded and that was the first dimension, kind of like a straight line. And then as the universe expanded again, it went like a plane. And now in the third dimension, we become more physical and that we maintain the consciousnesses of all these dimensions. And it's not just first, second, and third, but because everything is spiral, it gets continuous as we move out. There's so much that we're capable of, and we are continuously evolving, and when we get that, we begin to sort of move into the flow. People have to learn to let go of some of the heavier thoughts and baggage regarding, extraterrestrials, entities, and other things. We see this bleed over into the paranormal, that when we have extraterrestrial experiences, again, we have that increased ability for psychism, and now we're seeing apparitions and all types of other things. So when you're opening yourself like that, you're opening yourself to all types of frequency, higher and lower, and you're going to be attracting all types of things. And so there are protocol, rules that you have to follow, things that you need to know about yourself and the world as we're learning. And the two phenomena now are really sort of bleeding together. I see people who have extraterrestrial experiences having other types of paranormal experiences. And there also is support for that. Paranormal experiences, there's an amazing organization called Opus. It's been around for a long time, and I recently have become a board member, and that's for the understanding of the paranormal experience, because it also is another way to open your eyes to the reality that even within the third dimension, there are parallels that are running along and in front, and we really need to get back to some of the basics when we're teaching our young people about what they are and why they're here on the planet. It's really to learn and understand the universe. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to understand consciousness. And that's what the whole phenomena can do. It can be a catalyst to a consciousness expansion that will allow you a sense of peace, because you begin to see what true power really is. And it doesn't have anything to do with some of the things that we might have been taught. And in fact, it's sort of freeing. And I understand, too, for the skeptics, that it might be fearful and hard to believe. But I think that that's an emotional response, in that when a person begins to apply logic, they begin to gently and easily open themselves up to the idea, and it doesn't seem so far-fetched after all.
I want to go to a question in the Revolution Radio chat room right now. This one comes from Olive, and she is asking, when you are doing hypnotherapy and others, let me get this. She says, ask Laurie, when she does hypnotherapy and others' vision, it is what she sees as a holographic projection or energy frequency. And do you feel that you are being in two places at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I want to try to make sure I understand the question completely. But I've often said that when I'm doing a session, I myself feel an energy change in the room. And when a person is experiencing this, that what they're doing, though, is they are reliving it. But their energy is heightened. The subconscious mind, it just stores information. It stores everything that you've ever been exposed to in utero and beyond. Even in your sleep, your subconscious mind knows its job is to receive continuous data and store it in the appropriate places, just like the lungs know how to breathe and the heart knows how to beat. It's just a simple operating system. And so in a session, we're only bypassing the conscious, critical, judgmental aspect of the mind, the mere 10%, moving into the depths of the subconscious mind, which is your own personal archives of everything that you've ever experienced. And when you are able to move into that, you can review things. Now, there are people who move into the superconscious mind, where they are moving scenes multidimensionally, that they are out there and in the office at the same time and experiencing their extraterrestrial so that they can talk to them and ask questions, live time. So, yeah, it's as if they're out there. And I personally say that I'm continuously monitoring the body for signs of trance, indicate the depth of trance. I'm watching where the subject is breathing, whether the breath is in the chest or if it's moved down into the lower abdomen. I'm watching how they swallow, or REM action, all sorts of things, and they're giving me the idea of where they're at. And it does seem that some people leave their body during a regression, but I do guided meditations. People tell me all the time when I do a guided meditation that while I'm speaking, they have out-of-body experiences. So, you don't know. You don't know. It was a very good question from Olive, though.
Yes. I thought so too. I just kind of butchered it, and I apologize for that. We have stated many times on this show in regards to people saying, and you mentioned it earlier, people are saying, I want contact, I want to be abducted, I want to have that experience. But a lot of people don't understand the whole concept of be careful what you wish for. Because there's a lot of experiencers who would give anything to not have those experiences. And there's a lot of people out there who have had contact or abduction where it's been just fine. And they're like, hey, more the merrier, come join the party. How important is it for people who've never had that experience and are yearning for it to really be careful what they are putting out to the universe?
Oh, well, obviously it's extremely important. They need to learn the protocol. If you go running with scissors, you're going to fall and cut yourself. If you go out there, I want contact, I want abduction, you're opening yourself up to anything. Lower astral entities, including demons. Demons pretend to be extraterrestrials all the time. And if we can believe in the higher loving energy of an angelic or celestial realm, then we have to open our minds to the belief that the lower also exists, and therefore we have to have our protocols in place. So you're out there running around wanting to be abducted and contacted. You have to be very clear in what you ask for and know that once you open certain doors, they're not so easy to slam shut, and that there are certain things a person needs to learn, such as how to ground themselves, how to deflect specific energy, how to even read energy.
Would you mind taking us through the process, start to finish, on a client who comes to you and how you get into the hypnotherapy?
Well, if they're coming for the abduction phenomena, or if they've had any type of contact like that, so they're looking for regression, so we're going to go back to a specific experience. But I have a very in-depth interview that I do with them. One, I am looking for indicators and commonalities in the abduction phenomena, and then I take the time to hear their story, and they are allowed to tell me what they expect from me. Then we do a very deep relaxation process, and then I count them down and move them from one state of consciousness to the other, very simply, very easily, very naturally, allowing them the freedom to explore what's necessary. Very easy to bypass the conscious mind because the subconscious mind likes repetition. And so there are certain keywords or buzzwords that we use. During the intake interview, of course, I'm going to also be able to determine how to count down the person. As some people, they require permissive languaging, and they need to be gently coaxed. Where others, maybe people with a police or military or authoritative background, require a more direct approach. And I'm going to tell them what to do, and they're going to do it because that's how their conscious mind receives best. So then we move into the experience, and I allow them to energetically or emotionally match the time so they know where to go back to. And then they're only viewing it. I don't want a person to relive it so that they're so emotionally in it that they can't tell the difference. I want them to stay slightly detached so that they are only reviewing. They don't feel so much of it because the feeling can take over. And what they're really looking for is information. And so we're doing a job.
What would possess people to come to you? How do they find out about you and what you do?
Wow. Well, I'm on the MUFON a mental health referral list. I believe I'm one of 27 clinical hypnotherapists that does this work and is approved by MUFON to do so. Also, people find me through some organizations in the United Kingdom. And I don't know people how they find me, but they find me. They find my website, or they hear an interview or see something, or it's very amazing to me. But also, obviously, I run, a very large support group for the phenomena, so I do get. I just think that when a person is looking for something, all of a sudden it appears. Dave, you wouldn't believe the stories that I've heard how people have joined my group. Many people have said, "Oh, I dreamed about you, and then all of a sudden I saw your picture and I knew that it was okay to go." And my husband right now is sitting beside me smiling and nodding because he's heard all of this too. And we've heard people say that their extraterrestrial or entity showed them me, someone who would be able to help them. We've had people come with their drawings of our home that they received while they were on ship, someplace they could go for help. Had people say, the dream one comes up all the time, that they've dreamed about me, and that's how they knew that I was safe.
That is heavy.
Find me, man, it just, I don't even know how to answer that, of the things that I've heard.
It's a true story that people will find you. And if they look hard enough, they will find you. It's just, on a way different term, not trying to, prop up what we do here, but it's the same thing here. Every single night, there seems to be someone different coming in, listening in, and that's kind of the way it goes. The message is the medium. When you put the message out there that this is what you do, eventually they find you. And so when you're going through that and you're getting these people who are trying to do this because you're wanting to help, you're wanting to get that message out there, are people who are coming to you, and we talked about it earlier, you have to vet each person similarly. Do they have any social problems, such as maybe alcoholism, drug addiction, from marijuana straight to cocaine or meth? Like, do they use any type of coping mechanism until they find you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The truth is that experiences have an increased rate of substance abuse because they've used it to cope. Generally, alcohol, and not anything as harsh as opiates or meth or whatever, but marijuana. But here in California, that's a legal coping mechanism. Just saying that, so that I don't think is something that they can really abuse. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I've never heard of anybody yet in the world ever harming themselves with that. And so it is sort of a natural sedative for certain people, and they have used it. Also, the alcohol, though, is a little bit scary. I don't like to see that. People saying, they just want to drink or they go to sleep because they're too afraid to go to sleep if they don't, and that way they just have to drink a certain amount so that they can fall asleep. Well, that's, all kinds of red flags there. And so certainly these people need a lot of help. And it's really kind of my pleasure and mission almost to be able to assist them. I can at least help them, through the transition period where they're unsure of what's happening as they gain balance and their own footing so that they can start to figure things out. So give them their power back so that they can start to learn from a different perspective feeling freer and less victimized. It's important that people have that out there, really, for anything. And I don't want to, by any way, make an excuse that abductees or contactees or all of them are, using something to cope with it. That's not the case. But our research does indicate that they have a higher chance of using it to cope. And that just makes me sad, to tell you the truth. That just shows me the level of desperation. And therefore, all the more reason for groups such as mine and all of the other people who do what they do, you as well, the whole team of people bringing the new information to the people on whatever level is necessary. Whoever's listening, there's always that one person who's going to hear just what they need to hear to relax just a little bit. Another person is going to hear something that's going to point them in the next direction of the step they're going to take in unfolding their story. It's always an individual thing. And for me, I'm happy to be in service.
Is your client mainly female or male, or is it directed right down the middle? And the reason why I ask that is for most men, we're supposed to be strong, tough, be able to handle any situation. But when it comes to extraterrestrials, it's something that is so completely different that we may not know how to handle it. And let's face it, most men out there, we're not the best at asking for help or going and saying, I don't know what's going on. We want to be able to figure everything out on our own. It's machoism, it's ego. How is your clientele broken down?
It can be anyone from any age. My experiencers have been from 7 years old into their 80s, both male and female, rich, poor, teachers, everybody, politicians. We've had them all, and it can be anyone. And for the men, I hope to empower them equally, and allowing them to show their true strengths is in telling their truth and being able to identify that emotion so that they are able to express it. That's your strength. Your strength is to be able to feel what comes up because it's legitimate in that moment. This is reality. This is how we're all wired. Suppressing it or having to live under the description of machoism, simply unfair and unreal. As in, it's not real. That's not the true identity of what a man is. There are roles that we play based on culture, religion, and society, but men have a purpose on the planet, as do women, especially now. I personally believe that we are at that monumental time in history where the patriarch is subsiding, that matriarch or that divine feminine energy is now moving into a place, a more gentle, easier way of understanding the bigger picture and that everything moves in cycles, and this is the beginning of that cycle. And so it'll allow men their personal freedom, and it'll allow women their personal freedom. It can be a very beautiful thing. We allow it naturally. It's all being real with yourself, Dave.
What is the hope for absolutely everyone who comes in to see you? Is it to have these experiences stop, or is it more of trying to get a grasp and understanding of what they are going through?
All of the above. I've helped people find ways to stop the experiences for them. I've helped people discover that it wasn't an extraterrestrial, that it was a demon. had to call in specialists to help me in that area, somebody who knows more than me. I mean, and it's people who want to just know more information, and people who are so sure that something has happened, or they've had like a dream that has stayed with them their entire life. Well, anything that is that outstanding in the mind and that stays with you your entire life is important. So let's take a look at it and see what it means to you. So people come for all different reasons. And I hope to be able to facilitate whatever process serves their highest purpose at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Is this a 24-hour job for you, or is this something where... or is it a 28-hour-a-day job? You know, and I mean that with all due respect, because you do have to find time for yourself, your husband, your family, and so on and so forth. But when these people keep calling or messaging you, is it something that eventually you're going to get burnt out on?
I hope not, but it is a 24-hour-a-day job. I am blessed. I have an amazing husband. He's completely supportive, open-minded. He respects the work. He understands the value of being able to help people who are desperate. And I do have people calling in crisis, and it can be any time. And he has, because he loves me, taken my phone and shut it off at night so that I can't be disturbed. Because, yeah, the messages do come, and I'll respond because I heard it. So sometimes he makes it so that I don't hear them. Yeah, it's a 24-hour job, and with everything, I have my work, the research, the group, the private practice, lots of speaking engagements. We're writing lots of information. So I'm busy. I'm working hard. And, yeah, I remember, though, to take time to go out and play.
Well, that's good that you're actually getting time to relax. So how do you shut off, though, from your own personal experiences? Because you're kind of battling a double-edged sword here. You have your clients, then you have your own experiences. Have your experiences continued, number one, and number two, have they filtered down to your family and or your husband?
Well, my experiences have continued, but what I do is I meditate, and I have been a meditator now for about 36 years. I'm a huge advocate of meditation. This increases the gamma brainwave. It allows you to be clear-minded, gives you the ability to relax and think before you act. It allows clarity in all types of situations. And I received an enormous amount of help from the Buddhist monks. I was meditating and I always kept popping out of my body. I know people want to do that all the time, and all I wanted to do was not do that. And one night I had this amazing dream about this very beautiful, kind of cool Buddhist temple. And the next morning, I was just driving aimlessly, thinking about my dream and other things that had been happening. And I was out in the countryside of Sacramento, and sure enough, there was the gate to the temple that I had just dreamed. And I parked my vehicle, and I went to the gates, and two female monks had the gate partially opened, and they said, "How did you know about us?" And I said, "I dreamed you." And they opened the gates and said, "Come in, come in." And now it's been 25 years. I still go occasionally to meditate there. They taught me more about other worlds and extraterrestrials than anything I've learned from any client or any group meeting, any book that I've read. They understand things that they don't normally talk about. I did meditation marathons with them where I'd meditate up to 18 hours at a time, exerting my own ability to control my mind. I feel that if you don't control your own mind, there's a pretty good chance somebody else would like to do it for you. And so one of the first things people should learn is how to meditate. It's easy. Nobody is a master or adept. It's just something you practice. Just practice every day for the rest of your life. No pressure.
No, none at all.
No, none at all.
You seem to take this at a totally different level, a more scientific level, in order to help people, or a doctoring type level, I should say. When you look at the field of ufology, and you have emceed at Contact in the Desert a couple of times, you've done the tours and the speaking circuits and everything, you know, do you think there's too many avenues right now in the field of ufology that we're trying to figure out too much at once? For instance, we have the disclosure aspect, we have the abduction aspect, the contact, UFOs, extraterrestrials, what species of extraterrestrials. Then we have now, which has been popular the last couple of years, the whole ancient aliens theories. Is it too much for people, especially in the mainstream, to grasp?
No. Also crop circles. No, there's it's not too much because each person is going to resonate with something different. I could say the same thing as somebody else, and they're not going to hear it from me. They might hear it from them, you know. So it takes all of these different avenues to intrigue different people to get them all eventually on the same page. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay if men maybe are more interested in the ancient alien aspect because it's more nuts and bolts and more action-oriented, and they can see the, you know, results of that because it's right there in that petroglyph. So that's great. So whatever it takes, that's what I say, whatever it takes.
But I guess the way I'm looking at it right now is the mainstream really isn't catching on. I mean, no offense to Giorgio Tsoukalos, I'm sure he's a very good guy, but you see how people are more interested in making fun about his hair and everything being aliens than they are about taking the show seriously. Yes, that's the internet, but let's face it, that's what people are doing. I must see at least 2 or 3 of those a day, and I have 2 Facebook profiles, my private one and my Spaced Out Radio one, you know, and I see it a lot on my private one as well. And that's why I'm asking, because in the end, the people who are being naive are the people in the mainstream who aren't believing that this is happening, that UFOs are in the sky, or abductions are happening, or that extraterrestrials have even been here if they exist. How do we then try and flip the switch if we're not overburdening them and oversaturating them with too many topics at once?
Well, okay. They're not going to be exposed to all of the topics. Only certain people are going to be exposed to certain topics. But there is a certain amount of responsibility we should take in waking up somebody to a different reality. We don't want to give them so much information that we fry out their core belief system and cause them mental distress, scare them. We don't want to do that. So we have to be calm and logical and practical, create protocols, try to create commonalities among the phenomena, do our homework, look for the research, and do it one step at a time. And everybody is taking it from a different direction, and I think that's no mistake. I think it's meant to be that way because who comes to hear me here, that's because I'm available. Somebody needs to be saying something else about the phenomena somewhere else because those people need to hear it. It's just the way it is. I believe that in the highest of all good, and I do believe that there is a universal plan. I also think that there is a difference between destiny and fate, And we need to find out what that is inside of us. And that, again, it comes back to personal responsibility, and that we can begin this path of self-development until we understand self-mastery, so that we have self-actualization, the ability to live on the planet and balance with respect the way it is meant to be as we move forward, constantly moving forward, so that we can take it to that highest level. I know with my life, that's how I want it to be. And I choose that every single day. So as strange as the phenomena may sound to others, I can only tell my truth from my perspective with my integrity, and hope that it falls on the ears of the people who need it, or allow somebody to reach out to someone else and tell their story or share, so that we can ultimately all help each other. And we do that by being informed, not contracting inside of ourselves and holding back. Now, that's not natural.
Well, hopefully, in the end, they start taking it a little bit more seriously, because there's going to be a lot of people who are screwed if Stephen Bassett is correct and the rest of them, and disclosure ends up happening even as early as if Hillary gets in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is scary times right now, because this could throw a lot of people for a loop.
Right. Well, what's irritating about Hillary, well, I mean, one of the things is that she's like, oh, yeah, you know, Podesta's got this extraterrestrial information, and if I'm elected, we'll move forward with it. So basically, to me, you're saying we're holding this information hostage. And if you want this information, then you're going to have to give me your vote and put me in that position of power. So that irritates me. So I would just like to bypass all of that and go, okay, so they know. Good enough for me. You know, so that's more important. I don't need the government to disclose it. I know what's happened to me. I don't need that externally validated. You know, some people do. Some people want to see that, body of government taking control, and it makes them feel safe. I already feel safe, so I don't require that. But it's going to be different for everyone, but it just irritates me that they imply that they know. And then again, with disclosure, once again, and I like to call Stephen my friend, I think that we have to be careful, because, again, they're going to administer the information to us in doses that they think is appropriate, and therefore it can be manipulated, and information now becomes power. Again.
Awesome. Laurie McDonald, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a pleasure it was to have this opportunity for you to go the distance. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
And you hold on, because I'm going to talk to you in about 2 minutes after the show. I'm going to close this thing out. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, you're hearing Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, who does all the music for this show. Spaced Out Radio goes 7 days a week. My show, Spaced Out Radio, Monday through Friday. Spaced Out Weekend with Elizabeth Anglin and James Tyson on Saturdays and Sundays. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your night, especially those in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, and all of you taking part on Revolution Radio's chat room. You know who you are. Zippy, Olive, Tremjar, Buddha. There you go. Have a great one. I'm out for the weekend. My bag is packed. I'm heading into the wilderness. Time to find my Zen, my Chi, and maybe a good Wi-Fi signal to listen to this weekend's Spaced Out Weekend. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Laurie McDonald's website, TrueYou, Check it out if you need help. If you're an abductee, she's there for you. Also, check her out on Free. You can find Free on Facebook. Have a good one. Good night.